Now back here at home, the Maine mass shooting suspect, and alarming new details this morning about missed warning signs that led his family to reach out to law enforcement months before the massacre. Trevor Ault is here with that for us. Good morning again, Trevor.
Good morning, Robin. So there were, as you say, a ton of warning signs here, including from his own family, according to the Saginaw Sheriff's Office. They say Robert Cart's family reached out in May, saying his mental health had declined and they were worried about his well-being and his access to firearms. Authorities say they contacted his Army Reserve unit, and in July, he was committed to a mental health institution. In a statement, a U.S. Army spokesperson says after that, the suspect's commander was told he should not have a weapon, handle ammunition, and not participate in live fire activity. Then in September, after a soldier expressed concern of a mass shooting, the sheriff's office requested a health and wellness check, and it led to a statewide alert. But deputies say they were later told this suspect had no longer had weapons from the reserve unit, and his family was working to take away his guns. That statewide alert was canceled October 18th. 1 week before 18 people were killed. Lindsay?
Multiple misread flags there, Trevor. Thank you.
Multiple misread flags. It is Tuesday, All Hallows Eve, in the year of our Lord 2023. I want to go, we had Shella Matthews and really an amazing couple of segments on Saturday's show, and I got tremendous feedback. So we want to kind of help Shella make this effort about these drugs in young boys, but it's actually deeper than that. It gets in these mass shootings. Shella Matthews, first off, I want to go back and start and just restate what Able Child is about. This whole issue of the drugging of essentially young boys, a lot of times is not to demonize or to stigmatize single moms, but it's where the father, a lot of times where the father's not in the home or the father has left. And you have these psychiatrists, and particularly the school psychiatrists, and how that eventually evolves to the issue of mass shootings, and how that even evolves in all these because you're saying this happens all the time, and it's out there in the open and nobody catches. How's it even play into this Maine situation? So go back and talk to us about what is the purpose of your organization and what led you to make this kind of the cause of your life.
Okay, so it's informed consent regarding psychiatric drugs. So our focus is that parents get all the information before they place their children on psychiatric drugs. That means they need to know the subjective nature of the diagnosis, and then they need to know the dangers of the drugs. So another mom and myself formed this organization in 2000 based on the fact that her son was placed on Paxil and attacked her with a knife, and she didn't recognize him. I was getting ready for a meeting, and I saw her the night before on C-SPAN testifying before the Congress. I called Congress, I got her name, and then we started this organization. So her help prevented me from placing my son on psychiatric drugs. So that's what our organization does. We want parents to understand that the psychiatric industry and the pharmaceutical companies are actively participating in our school system through the Association of the School Psychologist's Office. So they're a distribution channel. So we started working on this, and then it tumbled into foster care, and now I work on mass shootings. And how I do that, Steve, is through identifying through these reports. So you just showed an opening clip and they were like, oh, all these missed flags. Well, that's simply not true. We already know from one report that was put out that he was treated at Keller Army Community Hospital. And last time I was on your show, I said that's really important because we have to get to the root of the problem here. Who is the treating psychiatrist? So that is important. Now we have that information, and so that's how I started working on this particular Maine mass shooting that happened. And basically the report that you showed in the opening was that he was treated, he was this. Well, the fact is they already have this information. They already know who the treating psychiatrist is and the meds he was on, but they're withholding it. And if you noticed in the segment, they said a spokesperson. So they don't give you the spokesperson's name. They don't give you anything that you can solidly put your teeth in. So basically what Able Child is focusing on is this particular public commissioner that was appointed by Governor Janet Mills. He is the public health commissioner, and he basically had a press conference, and he's basically the one that we have in our sites right now. So he has the data, and he's saying, well, we really can't focus on the diagnosis because a lot of people in this press conference have diagnoses. Well, I don't really care about that. I want to know what this guy was diagnosed with. Then he says,
hold it. Whoa. Hang on. Slow down. He said that he can't talk about the diagnosis of Robert Card because many people at the press conference have diagnosis. What does that even mean?
That means he is playing down the psychiatric aspect of this mass shooting. And he's also basically saying it's so complicated. Mental health is so complicated that the public won't understand all the different levels of mental health. And so he's not doing his job. He's not a good he should be removed immediately, and we should get the psychiatrist from the TRICARE, which is the behavioral health vendor of that hospital, out in front. We need him out in front. And from Keller Army Community Hospital, he needs to be out in front. They have his records. They know the psychiatric drugs he's already been given. So
okay, hang on. I want to go back on something. You said this about informed consent and psychiatric drugs and giving to these young kids, and it turns out a lot of these mass shooters have this. Let's go back to the beginning. Are these psychiatric drugs, how powerful are they? Is there something about them that makes them so powerful to young men or young people that they've got to be, the parents really have to understand this? Is it, or are they just like another form of Motrin?
No, the psychiatric drugs are causing violent reactions that include mania, hostility, violence, aggression, and the most of all, homicidal ideation. Okay, and that comes from psychiatrists' own peer reviews. Okay, so, and that comes from the clinical studies that they're doing on these psychiatric drugs. And a lot of people are kicked out of the clinical drug studies because they have aggression, and they've carefully worded the word aggression. They could say you have agitation. Senator Grassley did a really good piece over his course of looking into the conflicts in clinical drug trials. So this is a collateral damage. What we're dealing with here in the state of Maine is collateral damage of the psychiatric industry of the drugs. Now,
okay. Hang on a second. Just so I understand this. They have to, psychiatrists or school psychologists, I take it, are not medical doctors. That's what a psychiatrist is. It's kind of next level. If there's a track record and it's proven in peer-reviewed journals, which I assume if you say it, you can back it up with peer-reviewed journals, why would they give these psychiatric drugs or some combination or cocktail of them to these young boys that have, they've got ants in their pants? I mean, they're typical young boys. They're not made to sit in classes. They're made to be out, in a field hunting and shooting and farming and, that kind of stuff that's in their basic DNA of being a young man. Why would they risk, even for things like ADHD or whatever they say these kids have, just basically being, young boys, why would they risk why would people in responsibility and authority, and the schools have the best interest of the kid, and clearly the doctor with the Hippocratic oath has their best interests, why would they put them on this? And how possibly could they ever convince a parent to sign the document that you have to sign if there's studies that show that they have, hostility, agitation, leading up to homicidal ideation, which means, hey, I'm thinking about killing some people, and it's in my head. So how can that even work?
Well, they don't give the parent the information at the school little meeting that they have. They don't say, here's all the documentation of the treatment that we want to get your son on. They don't say that. That's why my organization works on informed consent. That's part of being informed so you can make a wise decision. And it's called coercion. We experienced it a lot as a nation recently. It's coercion. That means that they coerce you into doing it. They soft step it. They're like, well, we filled out, your son has these characteristics of ADHD. They don't tell you that those are subjective checklists. They're not saying this is very subjective. And we can't prove it because there's no brain scan, there's no blood test we can take. I didn't get that information. So parents are doing it because they're being lied to. And now this commissioner in the state of Maine is lying to us. Okay, he has the documents. He says in the conference that, oh, I was told this by, who? Tell us who told you this. Bring the psychiatrist out. So parents are being coerced, the country's being coerced, and I don't know if you know Donnie Deutsch, but he developed the advertisement of the bouncing Zoloft commercial, and it says, you may suffer from a chemical imbalance. Well, that's been proven not to be true. And that story came out. It didn't make the ABC news that you just showed. They didn't come on the air and say, oh my God, there's no proof behind chemical imbalances. They're not going to tell you that because they're getting pharmaceutical advertisements and they're pushing these drugs. It's an industry.
Are you saying that the school, when this first starts, which is at the school psychologists and psychiatrists, that they are advising taking medications or medicating children of medications that may be too powerful for them for the simple reason is there any ideological reason they want to suppress young men's activity, or is it purely a profit motive because the pharmaceutical industry is seeing a great pathway of distribution by doing it by turning the school into essentially a medical arm of their, or distribution node of their pharmaceutical company?
It's the distribution center. It's the pharmaceutical companies can't go into the school, knock on the front door and say, we want to sell your kids drugs. They have to go through somebody. So they're going through the Association of School Psychology. I've saved every document that ever happened to me and my situation, and other people have sent me theirs. And basically the information that I got was, try this drug. If this drug doesn't work, try this drug. And that was the recommendation through the school psychology of how to treat ADHD. It's a marketing campaign that comes into our school system through the Association of School Psychology. It is the only association that is allowed in our school. They want to be the experts, and they are seeping into everything. They're in our military, they're in our churches. I could get into all how, and I just know that they are, and the evidence is out there. And in the state of Maine right now, on this mass shooting, ABC is doing us a disservice by telling us that, oh, there's all these missed flags, because what's going to happen now is going to say, we need more mental health. We need more mental health spending. And there's a shortage of psychologists. There's a shortage of these people. And so they keep getting more and more power. And the educational system is being shoved to the side. We're not getting money for real education. They run everything. They're running this investigation in the state of Maine right now. They're feeding this commissioner talking points. And for him to say in that press conference, a lot of us have diagnoses. I mean, think about that's crazy. That is crazy. We want to know about this shooter. What was his diagnosis? So that's why I think it's important.
You know, it's interesting that there was a study out the other day. 62%, I think it's millennials. 62% millennials are dealing with, are either medicated for, or have seen a doctor for mental issues. Like almost 2/3 of a generation. Are you saying this all comes out of the schools? This all comes out of turning the schools with these psychologists into basically mental institutions?
That's right. And now we have a push to get through President Biden, a push to get mental health clinics in our schools. And there's a perfect example in the state of Connecticut, in Killingly, Connecticut. And there's a little board of ed that's trying to fight back and say, we don't want this mental health clinic in there. And now the state of Connecticut is suing that little board of ed. And so, yes, it is a moneymaker. And, you know, Steve, you know, those bills you talk about that they pass that are like stacked up real high? This is all coming through that. They are passing these mental health bills. We never get a public hearing on them. And I really want to point your attention to this New York bill, which was proposed in 2000, which would collect the data that we need when somebody gets arrested. And basically it would say that when you come into the police station, you know, what psychiatric drugs are you on? And they would start gaining that data. This bill died, and it's important that we get it back on the table, you know? So, and then Go ahead.
If people are saying, I want to hang 1 second. I want to go back to Maine then. In the Maine situation, this is quite confusing to the outside because it just seems like one day of mumbo jumbo after the other. Do we know now that he was actually on these psychiatric drugs and that this was given to him by what you call the treating psychiatrist, which is your point in all of these school shootings? It turns out that I think virtually all these kids, or the majority of them, are on these psychiatric drugs. Your point is you can't get to the bottom of any of this until you see what the treating psychiatrist diagnosed the patient with and what drugs he was on. Correct? Is that the core of your pitch as far as this being something that the nation needs to focus on?
The nation needs to focus on the press conference that was held by this commissioner of public health. He says that he cannot get access to the records, and that's not true, okay? Because the behavioral health vendor, TRICARE, that works at that hospital, they told us the hospital he was treated at. So we don't want to hear from the commissioner telling us that all the people in the room have diagnoses. We want to hear from the treating psychiatrist. We don't know his name. I don't know if he was on psychiatric drugs, but we need to know that. And that's what I'm asking. We can't take away people's guns. We can't blame guns. We can't get more mental health money spending until we hold this industry accountable. And that's what I want to do. I want to hold the industry accountable. Get him in front of the microphones from the hospital. Who is he? Somebody knows who he is. And I believe it's the Commissioner of Public Health, Saucechuck, who he worked in Portland. I mean, his characters, I mean, you got to do a deep dive on him. He's been shuffled around and he's anti-gun. I mean, I can bring up his bio, but I think it's important to get to the psychiatrist at this point.
Why does the media immediately never talk about this? They always go right to the gun thing, and the gun use. It's the same argument over and over again. When the evidence is the vast majority of these people are young men, the vast majority of these folks have had psychiatrists treat them with these psychiatric drugs. Well, is it big pharma that's stopping this because they advertise so much on TV? Is it politicians? I mean, in your mind, what is stopping us from having a full and frank conversation, since this is clearly an issue for virtually every parent of a boy that's in a public school?
This is the state apparatus. This is the state. This is the state's partnership with the behavioral health vendors. They hire the vendors to drug the public, whether it's in the military, whether it's in the schools, it's the vendors. It's a billion-dollar industry. And so like in Sandy Hook, they named the whole hearing right away out of the gate, gun safety, gun safety. Well, they knew the treating psychiatrist of that young kid, that young boy, and they avoided. Why did they avoid it? The Newtown police station was under investigation for corruption through the FBI director, James Comey, who is my cousin, and I hope you still like me because of it. But he knew information about Sandy Hook that the public had a right to know about. Okay, the Newtown Police Department was selling drugs imported from China to the public through the Newtown Police Station. He did an investigation called Operation Juicebox. How come the public never heard about that? So they're covering up drug trafficking, behavioral health vendors that the states are in bed with. And that's a whole nother discussion on how that structure is set up through the legislators. And I'm happy, and that's why I want the New York bill to be put back on the table, because it's not just me, it's the DOJ that says 23% of these school shooters are on psychiatric drugs. So it's really important for us to have this conversation. It's not a conspiracy, it's corruption. It's money and power and access. And so I'm hopeful, Steve. I mean, it's been a long journey for Able Child and other organizations. So I'm happy to help, and I hope this is helpful.
Yeah, how do people get to your organization? I know the feedback I got over the weekend, the people that went were pretty blown away. They didn't. Folks don't know the scale of this, particularly if they're past the years of having kids in school. But there's something clearly wrong here, and the pharmaceutical industry, just like in the vaccine, is embedded here. They're dug in, and they're not going to move. We had Dr. Peter Bregan on at the beginning of the pandemic. We had it on a couple of times, and he was legendary for being the guy that stepped out and really called out the industry and really put his own career in jeopardy when he did it. So where do people go now to find out more about this and any updates you've got on this Maine situation? Because there's something deeply wrong about this Maine situation, and this is not about guns. There's something deeply wrong with what happened up there, and people want to get to the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. They can go to ablechild.org. Thank you for having me on, because my website, the beautiful emails of support I got, please keep them coming. We want to help. We want to, get to your emails. So it's ablechild.org. Everything that I have spoken about is on my website. They can pull down work and really look at my work in Sandy Hook. And that is really important, because it is the catalyst of what's going on in this country with the mass shootings and how they hide behind the victims. And also my video on my homepage, on my Facebook, on Parkland, sentencing hearing I did with Kelly O'Mara. I really would love that to be blown up. You have to have Kelly O'Mara on this. She's a journalist and an investigative reporter, and she's really more articulate than I am with a deep dive into the links to the side effects and a lot of things. We've been working on this for years together.
Shella Matthews, thank you so much for being on. What's your, besides going to the site, what's your social media?
Oh gosh, Steve. I don't have, I'm developing a staff here. I have a small group of volunteers, so you just have to go to my website right now, and
okay,
we're
fine.
hopeful
Perfect.
that.
Now, we'll make sure we'll get you social media literate so you can get that. We'll get you up on Getter. Your thing will explode. Trust me. Shella, thank you so much. We'll go to the website. Able Child, named it was President Eisenhower's big push. I want to thank you for standing watch for America's sons. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you, Steve.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to come back. This massive fight that's going on about where your money's being spent. A big part of that is clearly Ukraine, and they are pushing this nonstop. They got to get that 60 or 80 billion. So Ben Harnwell from Rome is going to join us about all of that, get us up to speed. Also, the Synod on Synality. It's so bizarre, I can't even talk about it. It's another radical movement by this fake Pope, Francis. We're going to get into that too. Also, we're going to have Brother Crouch on here talk about gun safety, how to use your weapon better, and how to avoid the costs right now of gun ranges and the ammo costs. Not that you don't need to go to a gun range on occasion, but you got to get better with your weapon, particularly if you're new to weapons. Young people, wives, daughters, girlfriends are just getting their first weapon. You need to use your own weapon and need to know how to use it. And Joe Crouch is going to be here to talk all about that. Short commercial break. We're going to be back in a second. We're going to go to Rome with the one and only Ben Harnwell.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we want to make sure you're not caught by the unexpected here. We believe that being prepared is now a watchword with what's happening in society. Make sure you go to Jace Medical. Dr. Sean Rowland and the team have just done an amazing job of taking Rosemary Gibson's book about the Chinese Communist Party have control of the supply chains and things like active pharmaceutical ingredients so that they control all generic drugs and medicines. Make sure you don't get caught unawares. Go to jacemedical.com and do it today to make sure that all of your needs can be fulfilled before something untoward happens to your region of the country, or the Chinese Communist Party start using their leverage, which you know they're going to use because they're the Chinese Communist Party. These guys are absolute killers. JaceMedical.com. Check it out today. Joe Crouch, now in very uncertain times, more than ever, people, particularly young people and wives and girlfriends and others, are just coming to understanding the need for self-defense and really have the first time having their weapon, need to do repetition, just like in football, just like in golf, just like in tennis. That the book written by who was it, Glasner, 10,000, the 10,000 repetitions you need to get really proficient in something. You provide a service to do that. iTarget. It's too expensive to go to the range. You should go to the range on occasion, but ammo and range time, etc., plus the ability to use your own weapon sometimes is limited. Why is our iTarget solve that problem and solve it for the American people today?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Well, it does take a lot of reps, and it can get expensive if you're going to go to the range to practice as much as you really should be practicing. And so what iTarget is we sell a laser bullet that's caliber specific. And so then it drops down into your firearm, goes right into the chamber. And then we have two different products. On the screen here is the iTarget Cubes. And this gives you multiple targets to shoot at. And it times you on how fast you can shoot them. So it runs on a phone app.
1, go.
The cubes beep, and then you shoot them.
2.78, 3.60, 4.22.
So it tells you exactly how fast it took you to shoot all of them. So you can set them out throughout your house, do clearing drills, or you can do head-to-head competition. It just makes it more fun to practice. And then we have the original iTarget Pro product. And on this one, it's your phone's camera looks at the target, and then you shoot the target with the gun. And you see on the phone screen there, it puts the bullet holes exactly where you hit the target. And so this allows you to not only practice more often, but because it's fun to do and you're actually seeing the results right away, the app saves your results so you can see how you're progressing and getting better over time. And it's 100% safe because there's no way with the laser in the gun, there's no ammo at all. There's nothing in the magazine. And the laser goes right where the bullet would go, so there's no way you can have an accidental misfire. So that makes it a great way to teach other people that are new or nervous around the gun and don't know how to handle it properly, so you can safely teach them and train them. And I invented the product originally because my wife was like that. She was very scared to touch the gun. And so now she enjoys going to the gun range and shooting an AR-15 and all that. But In these times, I think anyone that doesn't have a gun should probably have one. I just placed a new order for the iTarget sledge yesterday in my manufacturing plants in California. And the guy there said that the gun stores are selling out because Jewish people for the first time are buying guns. And they need to be training. Everyone needs to be training.
No, you got to train, and that's why our target is so fantastic. Can it you work on every gun, every caliber? Is if people, when they go to your site, do they have to be caliber specific? How do they order, and do you cover everything?
We cover most. The 22 is too small for the laser and the battery, so we don't have the 22, but all the common handgun calibers we have, and we have the AR-15 and the AK-47 calibers and the 300 blackout caliber for rifles. And as we get more requests, we're continuing to expand our caliber range. But for the handguns, we got most every common caliber covered. We even have them for revolvers.
Where do people go right now, Joe, to make sure to check this out and see if it's right for them and the family?
Yeah, Steve, it's available at our website at www.itargetpro. It's a letter I, targetpro.com. And we're running a special on the cubes. If they use the code WARROOM20, they get 20% off of those. So it's a good deal on them. It's our best price we've ever had.
No, and the cube is a great way to participate and to think it through and to do a little more complicated evolutions of what we call in the military. Joe Crouch, it's an amazing product. Very proud to be one of your partners on this because everybody needs it. Remember, you need to do reps, and you need to do reps with your weapon. The only way you're going to get proficient, particularly if the store is saying that Jewish people now are buying weapons, this is all about repetitions. If you buy it and it's great and expensive, it just sits there. It's not going in that emergency when you need it most. You can't think about it. You got to react, just like in sports.
Yeah,
it's reaction
exactly.
time.
Too many
Joe
people
Crouch,
buy
thank
it,
you.
lock it in a safe, and never use it. Thank you, Steve.
Never use it, and it'll never be. By the way, that means it'll never be used. You didn't buy it as a static display. You bought it as a dynamic instrument. Joe Crouch and the team at iTarget show you how to be dynamic. Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Harnwell, thanks, brother. Harnwell, Rome. Ben, okay, Austin's sitting there today testifying that if you don't give the $80 billion today or the $60 billion, we're going to be fighting a land war with American boys and girls against Russia very quickly. I mean, the hype is so over the top. McConnell's now agreed. He knows he's got a problem. He wants to throw some border security trinkets on there. Give us you were the guy in the middle of the night that got the Time Magazine article to me. It was so blow away that I actually put it up as soon as I read it. Walk me through where we stand, particularly as it dawns on Zelensky that Mersheimer might have been right, and he was led down the primrose path by the party of Davos, sir.
Steve, good evening to you. Yeah, this is really, this article here that, as you say, is up on at Steve Bannon right now. I'll be posting the link to that myself. It's an astonishing article. I would change the headline. I would call it an anatomy of a discard. That's really what this is. It's a breaking down, an analytical breaking down of precisely how President Zelensky has been discarded by the very people who are encouraging him to fight with every means possible against Russia. Really, as you say, as Professor Mearsheimer said, he's been walked down the primrose path. There's one quote here, however, that I want to read out, which isn't actually to do with the discard. It dovetails precisely into your question, right? About Lloyd Austin and Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and all the rest of them. Right? I'm just going to read this directly. Amid all the pressure to root out corruption, said the journalist speaking, I assumed, perhaps naively, that officials in Ukraine would think twice before taking a bribe or pocketing state funds. But when I made this point to a top presidential advisor in early October, he asked me to turn off my audio recorder so he could speak more freely. Simon, it's the name of the journalist, you're mistaken. People are stealing like there's no tomorrow. Now, if the War Room had sub-edited this article, that would have been the headline, and it would be in prime position on Time Magazine's website. It's not. This is buried right down at the bottom. This is This is October, Steve, when senators like Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham are wobbling on bifurcating funding from separating Ukraine out from Israel. This expression should be tattooed on every single one of their foreheads. People are stealing like there's no tomorrow. Steve, what are they stealing with? Well, they're stealing with American taxpayers' money. That's the reality on the ground. And as interesting as it is, that revelation, I would concentrate on the fact that this has made it through into the final copy. This is clearly what we've been saying for months now, Steve, that President, really back from the NATO annual general meeting in Lithuania, in Vilnius, I think it was June or July this year, the famous photograph, the family photo, when Zelensky was there standing on his own, looking at the camera, totally abandoned. We said that very day, this is the moment that you'll look back on, people will look back on, and say this is when the discard started, as he slowly started to be discarded. And articles like this, right, that are published, dropped right in the middle of a primary battle now for funds for Ukraine. It's not an accident. This is I would suggest this is to be seen in the fact that Zelensky is being left now to twist in the wind. I know I don't have very much time. There is very quickly. I know because you.
But hang on. Before we go to that, because this is central to this. What happens if? Because right now I can tell you, and I want the audience to understand it. The Hastert rule is a rule created a couple decades ago that had to be agreed upon because there was so much vitriol in the House even then. That unless a majority of the Republican conference supports a bill coming to the floor, it can't come. Right now, I can tell you that if they abide by that rule, there'd be no movement going forward on a Ukraine bill at all. And Ukraine's out of cash. What happens with all the big talk in Europe and NATO and the EU and Davos and all that? What, in your mind, because I'm telling you, I think this is the hill a lot of MAGA, a lot of America First, a lot of right-wingers are going to die on, is to stop the Ukraine, right? It focuses on the border, obviously, but if you stop Ukraine, other good things will happen later. What will happen in your mind right now, given these reports you've been reading from The Guardian, from Time Magazine, and from others, of Zelensky's regime?
I don't know. I really don't know how this is going to pan out. Potentially Zelensky, his family, perhaps some key ministers could flee the country. Potentially they could sit and try and divide the country more formally, like Vichy France did in the Second World War. It's not really at this point, Steve, in the game. It's not really now. I think Zelensky's game to call. It really depends on what Vladimir Putin wants to do in the event of the Ukrainian implosion. I think that's probably now the dynamic. Look, Steve, we've been saying for so long that the window to negotiate, for Zelensky to negotiate from a position of relative strength, was closing. He's missed it now. So really, I think it's just a case of sitting by now, seeing what the Russians will do, because the West is extremely overextended.
But Ben, hang on. But you were in the European Parliament. You're an astute observer of British politics, European politics. You've been in Rome for over a decade now, I think. You're obviously a huge hit here on the War Room. You've done great work. Europe and the European project put so much into this. Leaving aside the American Atlanticists and globalists, I'm just talking about Europe. How can you be uncertain that Europe wouldn't come together somehow and at least figure out how to scrape up the money to keep Zelensky at least on life support? I mean, this has been their project for the last 2 years, to regardless of Putin, to not see this through to the bitter end. The moment they throw in the towel is the moment I think the entire European project comes up for question, because a lot of these populist political parties are going to sit there and go, hey, how much of our money did you piss away on something that you couldn't see through to the end, sir?
Well, the European peoples are all moving away and have been moving away for about a year at different speeds, admittedly, different degrees, but they have been moving away from supporting the European, the Western, the NATO, the American-led support of Ukraine. So in one sense, I think various countries will sigh a relief because they don't feel particularly invested in supporting Ukraine. The political elites, which you specifically referred to in your question, well, they have they have another distraction now with which to try to hypnotize their peoples, and that is Israel. So in one sense, if they are able to conduct a pivot away from Ukraine onto Israel, well, it would really take a watchdog media holding governments to account far greater than the one we have in reality. For governments to be scared, I think it's more than they're sociopaths. I think it's more than within their capacity to leave Zelensky. Say, look, well, we did what we could. We don't, but now is not the situation. Now is not the time to escalate. Given various global dynamics, we did. Everyone will admit we did what we could. These people are brazen and they can say anything they like. Well, to the degree that they'll be held accountable at the elections, I think it will depend on a country by country basis. But as I say, the centre of gravity is moving. Populists and nationalists are doing very well all around.
I want to come back. I want to do this. I want to do the synod tomorrow because I got a couple more questions here and we're running out of time. Last question. Is the European media reporting, because you're part of the war room, you're our international editor, do they get the level of animosity, not just by the right wing, but all of MAGA, many centrist Republicans, and quite frankly, now centrist Democrats we're just over Ukraine? I mean, that article in Time Magazine was brutal. Everybody's got to read it. It's free. I've got it up on Getter. Ben Harnwell has it up. You've got to read this because this guy, Simon Schuster, remember, he's no lover of MAGA. And this is the most brutal takedown I've ever seen. And he's trying to actually, I think, be supportive of Zelensky. I don't think he's trying to do this from a bad place. But does European media or the European people understand how controversial this is in the United States and how it's probably over?
I don't think so. And probably the motive for that, Steve, is because Europe really doesn't tend to get American politics that well. It has a very superficial reading, in the same way that sort of a lot of the American mainstream media doesn't really understand European politics either. So I think there's the distance, the cultural distance, a linguistic difference. I don't think there is a sufficient degree. It'd be very great if people here in Europe did understand the degree of anger and rage in the United States right now, because it would give an impetus to the populist and nationalist movements over here. This is one of the great things that you did, Steve, when you came over here. So a number of years ago, and sort of rallying these people to let them know that they're not just like sort of eccentric voices shouting out in the wilderness. They're part of a global movement. Now, obviously, from country to country, the iteration will change of how that plays out. But I think it would help. Look, you've got me here in Rome, in the European Union, talking pretty much to a predominantly, not exclusively, but to a predominantly American audience. There's nothing really like this from the United States beaming into continental Europe to sort of give an analysis of what people are thinking and why they're thinking that from our perspective. I don't know if that sort of answers the question a little bit more. And perhaps there certainly should be.
Ben, how did they get to your, and by the way, I'm insanely jealous of your engagement on Getter. I've never seen anything like it. You put up these incredibly controversial posts, and the engagement is just insane, and the comments are incredible. How do people get to your Getter account?
Steve, acing social media isn't as easy as I make it look. You can. I wish I could. I wish I could actually say that with a Queen's accent to give it its full potency. Look, it's on the folks. Come to the warroom.org website, which is great. Grace and Mo do a fantastic job keeping everything on that. Come to that. We have our exclusive newsletter there. Just register for that there. Then you'll get my comments there. You can come to Bannon's War Room, which is our channel on Rumble. Great commentary on the videos that we upload there. And of course, the best, you just mentioned it, the best profile on the platform, on the GetUp platform, at Steve Bannon. If you want to read my somewhat tame offerings that Steve reposts, if you want the hardcore stuff, which is too crazy, just come to @Harnwell, which is where I am there. Thanks, Steve. God bless.
Ben, thank you so much. We look forward. You're going to be a big part of this debate here in the United States. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Ben Harnwell,
God bless.
Head of our international bureau out of Rome. We're going to get back into this tomorrow. We'll be back at 10 o'clock. I'll be up on Getter throughout the evening too, posting different things. We haven't had enough time today to talk about Treasury and to talk about $1.5 trillion of new issues and bonds in the next 5 months. Number one, it's going to be more than $1.5 trillion. They're already kind of lying about it and trying to bury the lead all over, kind of separating out, it's going to be $800 billion before the end of the year. Well, they don't talk about they've already committed to another $700 billion in the first quarter of next year. $1.5 trillion when they're having a tough time selling the bonds. Now more than ever, you need both the intellectual understanding of macroeconomics and particularly money and how it ties to power here in the country. We've tried to do that at Birch Gold in partnership with them with the End of the Dollar Empire, which is really kind of a graduate course in the politics of money, and particularly that politics, how it's driven the American experience. As importantly, maybe even more importantly right now, is you've got to get your own house in order. You need to talk to the folks over at Birch Gold to talk about precious metals, particularly gold, being part of your asset, being an asset class with you. Gold's been a hedge against turbulent times for 5,000 years, and there's a reason for that. And there's a reason in the last installment of the End of the Dollar Empire, I talk about the assassination of American prosperity, about that weekend with Richard Nixon in 1971 in August, in 3 days they took us off the convertibility of the Federal Reserve note to gold. A lot of things have happened since then about our economy and about your position in it, and a lot of them are not good. Check it out today, birchgold.com/Bannon. We're going to see you back here live at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning when you'll be in the War Room.